Hi, good evening. My name is Melissa Suarez, and thank you for joining us for How to Cope with Your Child's Developmental Delays. I want to thank you so much for being here today. And I'm joined by my colleague, Nipsey Dorville. Over the next little while, we're going to talk together about how to cope when your child has developmental delays. This is a topic that's close to both of our hearts, and our hope is that you leave today feeling more informed and a little more supported and a lot less alone. This work is being recorded, and all who registered will receive a copy of the presentation as well as the links to the recording. Here's a quick look at what we'll discuss during our time together. We'll start by introducing ourselves so you know who we are, and then we'll talk about the emotional impact all of this takes on families, and we'll walk you through some healing and healthy coping strategies for caregivers. Then we'll finish with some concrete steps you can take immediately and a list of resources you can hold on to. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. Raise your hand, interrupt us, anything goes. So before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about what we do. We work alongside families like yours every single day, and everything we're going to share today comes from that real hands-on experience of walking beside parents on this journey. Love the little reveal there. Our work sits within the Philadelphia Family Supports Projects, and it's really built on three pillars. We have our Systems Navigation Project, which helps families find their way through complicated systems of care. We have our Trauma-Informed Care Project, which supports the emotional well-being of caregivers. And then we have our Birth to Five Project, which focuses on our youngest children and their families. And together, these projects wrap support around the entire family throughout the lifespan. So, systems navigation. Let me just say a little bit about this. Through this project, families get hands-on training from a peer, someone who has actually been there, to help them navigate the systems of care. Families learn better ways to manage their encounters with the intellectual disability, developmental disabilities, and autism systems. Say that 3 times fast. They learn positive approaches to address their loved ones' needs and to troubleshoot challenges as they come up. And most importantly, families walk away feeling less isolated, more connected, and then very genuinely supported. Our trauma-informed care project work recognizes that caregiving can carry real stress and can sometimes create trauma. We offer caregiver stress training series that covers everything from an introduction to trauma to coping with frequent hospitalizations, time management, family sibling dynamics, and finding yourself all over again. Well, we provide referrals and financial support for trauma therapy. We host a support group and a safe place to share experiences, process emotions, and learn evidence-based coping skills like CBT, tapping, journalism, meditation, and mindfulness. And we offer peer-to-peer support and a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on. A big part of our focus is reaching families with young children, ideally before or at the time of diagnosis. We want to inspire hope for the future and help families to plan for everyday life using life course tools. We connect parents with someone who has been there before them. We empower them to presume confidence in their child, and we provide a safe place to process the grief and loss that many caregivers experience along the way. Our Birth to Five project is a combination of the systems navigation and trauma-informed care projects for families with younger children blended together. Now let's take a moment for introductions so you know a little bit more about us, and please share with us in the chat who you care for and where your learning journey is. All right, look at who that beautiful person is right there. My name is Melissa Suarez, and I've been a registered nurse for more than 20 years, and I have a master's of science in nursing with an emphasis in healthcare leadership and operations. I am the mother of 3 neurodivergent children. I have used and learned ASL or modified sign to teach my youngest one to communicate. I work very closely with multiple organizations that educate parents to become leaders within their community and find personal fulfillment in helping families find their voices, feeling empowered, and helping them advocate for children in all sectors.
Hi, my name is Nimsi Dorville. I am a family navigator with the Systems Navigation Project, as well as a Birth to Five family navigator. So I do two projects currently. I am the mother of two, a boy and a girl, and my son is actually on the spectrum. I did a parent leadership kind of like empowerment thing when I first realized that my son was developmentally delayed, which was called C2P2EI, Competence and Confidence Partners in Policy Making. Say that three times. And I've presented at multiple national conferences, including the National Autism Conference twice in 2023 and 2024. I am a graduate of the C2P2EI program, and I am enrolled to do C2P2 for school age students this upcoming school year. So, um, sorry. Mm, oh, let's shift to understanding child development before we can talk about delays. It helps us all be on the same page about what typical development looks like and how children grow. So this will be understanding child development. Here's something that I think every parent can relate to. When we become parents, we create dreams and expectations for our children. So, learning that your child may not be developing exactly as expected can bring up a whole wave of emotions, and that's completely understandable. I want you to know that today is a space for information, for support, and above all, for hope. I'm struggling, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go.
Okay, slides are gone. You got time.
So, what exactly are developmental milestones? Simply put, developmental milestones are the skills that children typically achieve at certain ages along the continuum. So think of things like the first smile, the first step, the first word. They give us general markers of how children grow and develop over time. Development, oh, sorry, I'm a little bit fast. Development actually covers a lot of ground. So let's break it up into four major domains. So the first and foremost is physical development, things like rolling over, sitting up by themselves, walking, and fine motor skills. The second will be communication and language, which includes babbling, first words, and following directions. The third is cognitive development, which is all about learning, problem solving, and play skills. And the fourth, I'm sorry, the fourth is I'm sorry. The fourth is social emotional development, like smiling, forming attachments, and interacting with peers. Each of these areas matters, and children grow across all of them. So here's an important reminder that I want you to hold on to. Every child develops differently. Milestones are guides, not deadlines, and think of them like general guidelines rather than a strict timetable. Children develop at their own pace, and delay is not a prediction of your child's future abilities, and delay does not define your child's potential.
Amen. Mhm.
Now, let's turn to recognizing developmental delays. This is often the part that brings families to us. That moment when something feels a little different and you start to wonder. So, what happens when concerns arise? There are some common signs that parents may notice. These can include delayed speech, limited eye contact, difficulty with movement, challenges with feeding, and trouble interacting with others. Noticing one or more of these signs doesn't mean that something is wrong, but it is a signal worth paying attention to and worth talking to with a professional. It is helpful to understand that developmental delays can happen for many reasons. Sometimes it is related to prematurity, sometimes to sensory issues, and sometimes to specific medical diagnoses. And sometimes, honestly, the cause is simply unknown, and that's okay too. Not having a clear answer doesn't change what your child needs from you: love and support. I'd love to pause here and invite you to reflect for a moment. What was the first sign that made you wonder if your child may need extra support? Feel free to put it in the chat if you are comfortable doing so. I encourage you to sit with that memory because that instinct that you felt is important, and we're going to come back to why trusting it matters.
For me, I think the moment was kind of like unclear necessarily. I had postpartum with my last child, so um, it was a rough road, and I think that I started to notice something about my child's development as he was growing beside my best friend who had her daughter the week before I had my son. He would meet his developmental milestones, but he would start to do them like he was drunk. He would walk all over the place. He could crawl, but it was like a sway kind of motion. And when he would like sit up, he would kind of like bounce a little bit. He had tons of sensory needs that I didn't realize he was fulfilling at the time by jumping up and down in his like jumperoo, but like constantly needing that. We had to get a trampoline for him in the house, and he would just constantly jump in that all day long. Like he's got legs of steel, but like the kid would not stop jumping. So, as a parent, I can't say that there was any one necessary thing. It started to become very obvious to me and to everyone else. And people started to believe that I wasn't paranoid when my son started doing this like drunken stagger. And then it was like, oh, man, Melissa's right. So it was just like this vague feeling when he was like 6 months old. But truthfully, nobody really stepped in or wanted to step in until he was almost a year old, which for me, I felt like was lost time. So I had to advocate at that time strongly with his pediatrician to get that referral. So if you feel that, it's real. You're the expert on your child. I'll keep saying that. You're the expert on your child.
So, for me, I think it was when my son was about 4 weeks old, so 1 month old. He didn't smile. So I was always constantly reading like, child development, typical child development stuff, and my son did not smile at the 2 week mark like how he was supposed to. My son was also born 1 month premature, so I tried to give him grace and waited until he was 2 months, but he still didn't smile at 2 months old. My son did not smile until he was 4 months old. He did not sit on his own until he was about 9 months old, and he did not walk until he was 2 years old. So my son was never on track for the pediatricians, but to me, he was just taking his time and developing into the perfect little boy he is today. Oh, sorry.
So let's talk about the emotional impact all of this has on families. Because this journey is not just practical, it's deeply emotional, and those feelings deserve attention. There are so many common feelings that come up for caregivers, and I want to name them out loud: grief, fear, guilt, anger, isolation, exhaustion, fill in the blank, whatever comes to mind for you. If you felt any or all of these, please know you're in good company. These are natural human responses to a genuinely difficult situation. And here's the heart of it all feelings are valid. It's important to recognize that every one of these emotions is a natural response to the challenges you're facing. There's no wrong way to feel, and there's no timeline you're supposed to follow. So if you're grieving, there's no timeline you need to follow. Hear yourself, okay? You're not alone in this feeling this way, and you don't have to apologize for any of it. So, one more time, we're going to reflect on all of these emotions. Which one has been the most challenging during your caregiving journey? Take a moment with that question. Sometimes just naming the hardest feeling takes away a little bit of its power and it helps us figure out where we need support and where to go next. So I would say grief was the hardest because I felt like I couldn't grieve. I felt very guilty about grieving. I felt like there wasn't any real specific thing to grieve about. And I felt bad because it's like, oh, I'm grieving for a child who is healthy, who's here, who is, home with me. And to be honest with you, it was really challenging. A lot of it later developed into some of the other emotions that we talked about, but fear then became the thing that drove me into this path of like figuring out what is going on.
Mm. I think that for me, it was the isolation. I felt very lonely, raising my son, even though I have like a huge family, I just don't have any family members that have children with disabilities or developmental delays or autism. So I was really alone in navigating the whole entire system. And you guys know how big it is from experience. It is a very difficult system to navigate. And not only that, but like children's birthday parties became difficult for my family to attend because it was sensory overload, not just for my child, but for me too. Um, so isolation was the most challenging during my caregiving journey, and it still continues to be a little bit of a barrier for me today.
Thanks for sharing that. So, I want to spend some time talking about grief because it shows up in a way that many people don't expect. What parents in this situation often experience is sometimes called chronic sorrow or ambiguous grief. It's called that because, like I had mentioned, there is no single loss event to point to, and the grief can quietly resurface over time and time and time again, often at unexpected moments. And understanding that this is a recognized experience can be very validating. This kind of grief touches so many parts of life. Parents may grieve a sense of normalcy and ease. They may grieve watching their child struggle. Grief can show up around us and relationships and identity, around the future that they had imagined, and around their own life expectations. And there's often regrief at milestones, birthdays, the start of the school year, moments when the differences feel sharper. There can also be grief around the loss of certainty, right? Because there becomes this ambiguous future. All of this is part of the great picture. So many parents describe this experience as holding two things at once. Um, I often think of like DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, which is meaning that there can be two things that are opposing and true at the same time. So it would be like real joy, real sorrow, side by side. And there's a piece of that that makes it especially hard. I think the favorite word I have for this kind of stuff is like one of those oxymorons, it's bittersweet. Whenever we think of bittersweet, we think about the happiness that also occurs, and then there's a pain somewhere that is also struggling to surface at the same time. Tends to be misunderstood by others because the child is alive and present. Okay, they can leave parents feeling like they don't have permission to grieve, which I mentioned, and I want to gently push back on that today because your grief is real and it's very valid. I want to say this clearly because it's so important. Grief and love can coexist. Grieving does not mean parents don't love their children less, and it does not mean they aren't finding joy. Parents may describe holding two things at once as deep pride and connection alongside real sadness for the parts that are really difficult and hard. And because the grief is so often misunderstood by others, parents can feel they don't have permission to grieve, right? So consider this your permission. You can love your child completely and still grieve. Now, this is going to bring us to healthy coping strategies for caregivers because naming these hard feelings is one thing, but living with them from day to day really takes real tools, and that's what I want to offer you guys. The first strategy.
Oh, Melissa.
Oops.
Uh,
Sorry. Go ahead, Nipsey.
no worries. Permission to grieve. The first strategy is simply giving yourself permission to grieve. Coping with coping in healthy ways starts with allowing feelings to exist instead of pushing them down. When you let yourself acknowledge the grief, you take away some of its weight, you make room for healing and for joy alongside of it. Sorry. The next strategy is to focus on your child's strengths. So it is easy to get pulled into everything that your child cannot yet do. But there is real power in noticing and celebrating what they can do and who they are. Shifting your lens towards strengths is good for your child, and it is good for your own heart too. And this is a favorite one of mine. So let's celebrate small wins and treat them as celebrating all wins. Progress for our kids doesn't always look like the milestone chart, and that's okay. Every step forward, no matter how small it may be to someone else, is worth celebrating. Those small wins add up, and honoring them keeps hope alive. Another essential strategy is building your support network. We were never meant to carry this alone, whether it's family, friends, a support group, or other parents who just get it. Surround yourself with people who understand, because it makes an enormous difference. Connection is one of the most protective things that you can do for yourself as a caregiver. I didn't find my village until much later. And let me just say, if I had my village very early on before his diagnoses, I feel like I would have taken on the whole world, you know? But I didn't gain that village until later. And Melissa was part of that village for me. So
I was one of the first I was the first C2P2 class that was virtual. And I was lucky. The pandemic made it very easy for me to connect with other parents who were really far away in other different places. And then here where I am in Philadelphia. So it actually became a little bit of like a blessing in disguise, even though at the time it felt horrible. And I had three kids at home who were all crazy, and I was just sitting there like going bananas, trying to be the teacher, the mom, the baker, the whatever. But yeah, it was definitely it was definitely a nice journey.
take care of yourself. So self-care is something that we talk about quite often here. So let's talk about taking care of you, otherwise known as self-care. I know that self-care can sound like a luxury when your plate is overflowing, but it isn't selfish. It's necessary. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Even small amounts of rest, movement, or doing something that you enjoy help you show up as the parent you want to be. So for me, I sneak away and read a book or something.
That was so cute.
Practicing self-compassion. It is um it is closely tied to practicing self-compassion. So please be kind to yourself as you would be to a dear friend walking the same road. You are doing hard, loving work every single day, and you need to let go of the impossible standard of being the perfect parent. Give yourself grace on the hard days. You deserve the same compassion you freely give to your children. Now let's get practical. Let's talk about the steps that families can take immediately. These are concrete, doable things that you can start on right away, no matter where you are in your journey. There are several things that you can do right away, and they start with you. First, trust your instincts because you know your child better than anyone. Second, you can talk to your pediatrician about what you're noticing, and if your pediatrician isn't listening to you, find a new pediatrician. Third, request developmental screenings so you have real information to work with. And then the fourth thing would be to contact early intervention services which can connect your child with the support they need as early as possible. Early action makes a real difference.
Sure does.
I want to underline why early intervention matters so much. The earlier a child gets support, the greater the impact, because young brains are remarkable. They are adaptable in the early years. So, early intervention can strengthen your child's development, build essential skills, set the stage for better long-term outcomes. If you take one practical thing from today, let it be this: don't wait, reach out early. I did, and I was told that my son would never speak. So we started looking for nonverbal ways to communicate with him. And then one day at 4 years old, actually 4.5 years old, he surprised us by speaking a full sentence, and we were told he was nonverbal. So yeah, it's crazy to even think that was like 3 years ago now. He hasn't
Wow.
stopped talking.
How about that?
I think it was because of the early intervention preschool that he was in. He was in an IU preschool and they really worked with him.
That's great.
So, keeping records. Another practical step is to be very good at keeping records. I cannot stress this enough. Keep track of evaluations, reports, appointments, the questions that came up along the way that you were not able to ask in person. Just have a whole note category of questions. It's easy for all of this to become overwhelming. So, just having one organized place for everything means that you can advocate more effectively and never lose an important piece of information when you need it. And the final step here, when it loads, is becoming an effective advocate for your child. That means asking the questions, even when it feels intimidating. That means learning your rights so that you know what your child is entitled to. And it means participating in decision making, taking your rightful seat at the table. And if there's no seats available at the table, pull a chair up on your own and sit at that table. You are entitled to be there. You are your child's most important advocate, and your voice carries real weight.
Think it can be super intimidating to sit at like, the table with preschool providers. You have an SI, you have a speech, you have an OT, you have a coordinator, you have a teacher, you have like all these different people involved. An ABA therapist, a BCBA, a BSc, a BHT, and then you are kind of just sitting there and they're talking very fast and talking about lots of different things, lots of different terms that you don't know. And I think the best part for me was I had an advocate who stopped everybody in their tracks anytime there was a term that came up that I was not familiar with. She's like, hold on, stop the meeting. Mom, do you understand what that means? And I'm like, she's like, okay, we're going to explain this. And it was like, hard ABA terms, like it was like socially mediated negative reinforcement. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is.
And
They
then
said
to
like,
top it off,
we're going to do a good transfer trial. And I was like, okay, okay, sure, yeah, like
top
not
it off,
really
they like
sure.
to sit across from you in this intimidating kind of like U shape. And then you're just the only one on your side of the table. So like it's all these professionals facing you, talking at you. I'm glad you had an
Yeah,
advocate to pull a full stop in that situation. Many parents don't know that they have the right to have advocates.
yes. And I think having an advocate is like a really, really special thing that parents can gift for themselves, to be very honest. I remember, the only meeting that I've ever had at my kids' school, they had over 30 people in this meeting. And it was only me, and they brought the CEO of the charter school. They brought all of the administrators were there, like five of them, all these different providers and people I've never met before. And then we had people who were coming in on visual, like through like logging in virtually, and it was just me. I was the only person there on Team Suarez. And I walked right in. My seat was right across from the CEO. I stood over there and I shook his hand. I said, I'm so glad you made the time to come in here and make this an important meeting for you. I appreciate your presence. I'm sure we'll get down to every single issue we have today. This is really great. I'm so glad everybody's here. Let's get to work. And they just were like,
Yeah.
she's overconfident here, but like that's it. And this is like a journey. It didn't start out that way for me. It started out, like I said, like I don't even know what they're saying. And I had to like have my advocate say, like, it's okay to ask these questions because I know that you don't know the answers to this. I know you don't understand what they're saying. I know you don't know what a transfer trial is. I know you don't know what like socially mediated negative positive reinforcement is. And I'm like, you're right. So she would slow it down and keep tempo with me. And then I started to really engage with the providers when they would come into the house. That is the bulk and the heart of early intervention, is teaching parents to take the lead. And that is where a lot of parents kind of like start to tense up. So, well, back to this hope and resilience and final thoughts. So, as we move towards the end, let's spend a few minutes on hope, resilience, and some final thoughts, because as the real challenges are, so is the hope. So, I don't want you to leave without holding on to that. So, here is what I would like you to remember most. You are the expert on your child. No professional, no matter how skilled, knows your child the way you do. And your observations, your instincts, and your love are irreplaceable parts of the team. So trust yourself and never underestimate the difference that your presence and your advocacy makes. And a gentle reminder as we near the close, don't forget to take care of yourself along the way. It's easy to pour everything into your child and forget that you matter too. Your well-being is part of your child's well-being. So please carry that with you. And I'm going to challenge everybody. So before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you're taking away from today's workshop, whether it's a new resource, a shift in how you're thinking about grief, or simply a reminder that you're not alone? I'm going to invite you to name it either out loud, quietly, type in the chat. Naming it helps it stick. So feel free, feel comfortable to chime in however you feel comfortable with.
Personally, I would say that I was reminded that no matter how alone I feel, I am not alone. And that, like I said, it has been a constant challenge in my journey. Um, Sometimes when things get hard, us caregivers, we push everybody and everything else away. And it's just something that we do to try to survive. Um, Naming it kind of helps it stick. I'm not gonna lie. It's out there. And I just
I
had
have
to say it for myself, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can see it. You can see how it changes even in your affect. So, whenever I do a workshop, which like I leave them like feeling like hyped. Like it's like Rocky and I'm like
Funny you say
I
that.
walk
It's
away
watching.
feeling so reminded of like where I started, where I am today, and like the confidence and the competence, that I got from like so many different trainings and from just interacting with other parents, supporting other parents, and learning about their journey and their experience and taking things with me and then them taking things with them. It has been an amazing process. And I've made so many friends. And I'll tell you what, the world of special education is a welcoming one. It's not one that pushes away. It's not one that's cold. It's not one that eats their young. It's none of those things. If anything I've learned, it is like, come in here. Come
Yes.
in here and let us
We
help you.
don't gatekeep. We don't gatekeep. We welcome all, whatever way, shape, or form you're coming in, whatever step in your journey you're at. We're all welcoming. And we do have monthly support groups for the birth to five, as well as the system navigation project. So, birth to five, you have to be 0 to 5, and a caregiver of a child between 0 and 5. And then for system navigation, it's 6 to the end of lifespan. And you can find those events under events on the Vision for Equality website. Check out our calendar. We also have some other things from our parent organization, lots of fun stuff. Sign up for our newsletters. Our newsletters let you know whenever one of these cool workshops is happening.
Yep. And you can actually download the calendar and it will automatically invite you and you'll get like a chance to register and then you can come and do this at the with us every single time. We do this twice a month. We love offering parent education and one thing I just really enjoy is learning about like things that I never knew about before. So like my child's disability is very different than, another friend of mine whose child's got more mobility and those types of issues. And it's just about going into things with curiosity and nobody's ever made me feel uncomfortable or judged. It's almost like you can come in there with everything and every kind of anything and it's just welcome. Like just welcome. We're here. We're here. We love you. We're curious and we want to know more about you. And that's just my experience. And I hope that's everybody's experience. I've had some negative ones and I've had some really great positive ones that kind of really outshine those negative experiences. But it all starts with getting linked in with people like NIMSY and other parents who are very passionate about the work that they do. So, Nipsey, do you want to scroll down to Shu's information at the end of the resources?
Um, Forgive me, I'm not technologically savvy.
Okay, it's already down at the end.
Okay. Here are our resources though. I do, advise that you check out our resources, everyone that we have listed here. Um,
Lots of links, lots of things you can get into, lots of support for caregivers.
okay.
So thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We will stay on for a bit if you have some questions, if you'd like some more information, or if you'd like to refer a family to us, please reach out to our supervisor. Her name is Shu Halegra, and she is the program manager. There's her email and her phone number at 215-923-3349, and her extension is 203 through the Philadelphia Supports Project. You can also learn more at the Vision Equality website, which is on our screen. And then I want you to remember, take care of yourselves. You are not alone. Welcome.